There we go. There we go. It's the end of what's been a very troubling weekend for most people. And what it brings to mind for me is that these young people seem to feel that they have no obligation with respect to civil behavior to participate in the legal, lawful processes that already exist in order to create change. Now, one of the things I pointed out to a tweet, in a tweet to President Trump today, was that the processes that are intended and written into constitutions and bodies of laws by which we effect good change have largely been sold out to bribery, blackmail, treachery, protection, racketeering, divide and conquer, and a media that has absolutely no interest, no intention, no agenda in which telling the objective truth rather than their own agenda is their business. All right. And give you a little background. 5 years ago, when I first began looking at the monarchy as a system of governance that was supposed to actually work, okay, and maybe you've seen some of my older videos on what the vows are that the monarch takes and what the jobs of the tasks and functions and roles are that are listed in the Buckingham Palace annual financial review, which differ from the vows. Okay, what the queen or king does is not what they vow to do. I found that troubling. And I found another thing troubling, that particularly women who become monarchs do not receive the same kind of education that male leadership has to command and master. The male role is spread over a large number of functions, from destroying and discarding and getting rid of something and setting up goals to reach into the future and create goals and objectives and a place in the future. Now, that's a broad spread of activities and things to think about. Women have a narrower band of experience to deal with that is more interpersonal, it's more detailed, and it's more confined to issues closer to home. There are not a lot of women who are frankly interested in law, rocketry, and brain surgery, okay? Because those are at the edge of the envelope and require a great deal of training. So women tend to be right brain dominant in a circle of skills to make do with where we are and what we have to deal with and what our resources are, where the men are dealing with how to get rid of this and how to obtain that. Okay, and that seems to be the way the genders have always worked up till now, until now, when souls that have never had the opportunity to make a choice for what gender they want to act out are being given that opportunity, you see. Now, I've got this broad range of interests, and I have kind of a sense that I don't think like most women. I sort of think like the guys. And I was a mechanic and I worked with the guys and I was comfortable with the guys. But I never sought to become a man because I felt that the gift that I was given was what I have. I wasn't angry or I didn't feel deprived by having to be a woman. I think I've honored the role of being a woman, a difficult woman. Okay, cantankerous and opinionated. Okay, but I've enjoyed being a woman. All right, and that's part of the predicament our society is in. Is people are having a hard time nailing down who and what they are with all this diversity, you know. And with families only having 1.6 children, so there's always newcomers coming in because the economy requires more people to do the work. How do we sort this out and make some sense of it? Well, it seems to me that all of the effort that's going in to arrest, incarcerate, investigate, okay, and talk to the protesters could be used to good advantage if the police departments, in interrogating these kids, actually make an assessment of their cognitive skills, their cognitive education, their level of socialization, their coping skills, their psychological health. And if the police and the judiciary were to utilize some of these 600 or so FEMA camps as education centers that are civil and decent, okay, the detention camp that I was in Oslo, Norway in 2015, because they considered me to be a dangerous, I was a dangerous person coming to Oslo, Norway with a legal passport, and I didn't do any harm, but they had to get rid of me for some reason, okay? But what I noticed about their detention process, it was eminently civil. They never laid a hand on me. They never did anything bad to me. They just made their assessments and decided where I should go next. And where I went next was back home. Okay, and I'm not going to quibble with that decision. All right, now, all of these young people who are being arrested and tried for crimes and yaketa smacketa and all that, they are young people who are at least confused about their priorities. Okay. And so suppose we had a national service boot camp for troubled kids that also would teach them trades and skills so that they could have a trade when they finished there. All right. And shouldn't that detention process also be training and educating all of our citizens in being an educated, English-speaking, current news familiar voter? Why is registering to vote in an election merely a matter of signing on some line and then showing up looking at this enormous ballot with all this little tiny print, okay, without any determination which voters are actually capable and competent to vote and which really aren't? You know, we've never bothered with that. Civics in high school should be preparatory to citizenship, like a Boy Scout badge, all right? So that everyone who achieves the Boy Scout badge of citizenship has been assessed by somebody at some level of academia, some level of military, some level of scouting, some level of political, it's hot, political bureaucracy, that every voter needs to be assessed for competence. And every protester needs to be assessed for potentials and what they think they're going to do here and how much they think they can contribute to society, given the way society operates in a civil, we are a republic that has some democratic aspects to it. But remember, there was the 1789 Constitution, and then that was redone in 1871, the Organic Constitution, which changed everything around. And then in 1913, more changes were made. 1933, more changes were made. And none of this gets transmitted to these young people, that knowing what's in the law is essential to being a citizen, is essential to being a responsible, self-governing, self-sufficient adult. Since when do you just bring people in and just throw them out on the street and hope they know what to do? Even those that don't even speak our language. What are our churches supposed to do with those people who don't speak our language and don't have the faintest idea what the ideals of the Sermon on the Mount are, that let your yes mean yes and your no mean no, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. He was faithful in what is least is faithful also in much. That's the ethic that this country was built on, but who's teaching the children the ethic the country was built on? Who's teaching the children? Even more so, the laws in common law that were built on, based on the holy laws of Moses. Who's teaching the children what right and wrong is? Anybody? I don't think so. If that were the case, we wouldn't be having riots now. And if rich oligarchs hadn't been allowed to hoard so much resources so that they could subsidize and fund and pay for Saul Alinsky's way of destroying society, okay? The Frankfurt School's way of destroying society, because that's what those were set up to do, the Marxist way of destroying society. And that's what the oligarchs are doing now. They're funding sedition and funding treason and funding protest and funding violence. Is this okay? No. And it's not just the president's job to completely redo the entire government, to turn it into a hierarchy in which there's a boot camp and everybody has to learn basic principles, and then there are privileges and responsibilities at levels so that any citizen can always know what they know that's essential, what they'd like to learn, so that they can accept a new responsibility in the future. That's civil governance. What we have now is chaos. And it's chaos that's being paid for by rich oligarchs who want to follow the Frankfurt School and Saul Alinsky and Marx and just destroy the civil governance that we already have. That doesn't make any sense. The people in this country, in what used to be the United States of America, now it's just the States of America, the blue ones and the red ones, have their own idea about how they want to live. And I personally, you're not going to touch me with a vaccine, and I'm not going to take a chip, all right? And you're not going to have 5G in my house or in my neighborhood because it's deleterious to my health. 5G alone, glyphosate alone is what do you call it, dehydrator, all right? And when there's too much chemtrails in the air and the oxygen gets down below a certain percentage, then we have another problem. But the air quality control people don't pay any attention to whether we have enough oxygen to breathe. That just blows my mind, okay? There seems to be a lack of commitment to the idea that this nation ought to be worth something and that the people who are in it ought to know where they fit, what their role function can be, and where they can progress to. But the way the education system has been set up, it's just chaos now. And the education system likes it because that's what gets funded, is the liberal idea that everybody's equal and we're all evolving together and this is just one world, and the right thing to do is just to cull off the people who don't get it, which is what was in the Greada Treaty in the Tau 9, and which is in the UN Agenda 21, 2030, 2050. Get rid of 90% of the people. Can anybody realize how sociopathic and psychopathic this movement toward destroying civil governance actually is? Could we please get back to teaching people the behavior that works and how people can get along, please? All right. Our professional associations, whether they've bribed themselves into toxic doctrines or they're blackmailed into toxic doctrines, the toxic doctrines have got to go. And so I'm here to speak to that. Yeah, you know it. So this is Emily Windsor Craig, and I acknowledge that, yes, Joseph Gregory Hallett and Brian, what's his name? Golightly Marshall are both considering themselves candidate for the position of monarch of the United Kingdom. And I haven't given up my claim either. So the next few months, I think, are going to be very interesting from the perspective of how are we going to craft and cast a future that we can live in and with. This is Emily Windsor Craig, and hit subscribe and hit the bell and come by and give me your opinion. I always have fun responding to people's opinions, whether they're positive or negative. That's okay. I don't get upset. Bye-bye.